Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I've always believed that music could survive anything. Heartbreak, cold winters, jobless weeks, even the chaos of the city's underbelly. I've played my old guitar under overpasses, in subway tunnels, and on cracked street corners, watched by weary eyes and heavy footsteps. But what I faced that night, music couldn't save me. Nothing could. It started like any other Friday. I'd posted up on 7th and Grant, right across from the little diner with the neon sign that never worked right. The weather was unusually warm for late October, and people were actually stopping to listen, tossing bills and coins into my open guitar case. I even had a kid dance along to a blues riff I played. His mom smiled, thanked me, and walked away before I could say anything back. Sunset came fast, smearing orange and purple across the skyscrapers like paint on broken glass. The city lights flickered on. That's when the strange part started. At first, it was just sirens, nothing new, but there were a lot more than usual. Ambulances, police, even helicopters beating the sky like war drums. Then came the smell. It wasn't rot exactly, not trash. It was like copper and mold, wet pennies and damp earth. Something primal, something wrong. I kept playing. What else could I do? Music is a shield. Or at least that's what I told myself. That was before the man stumbled down the sidewalk. He looked like he'd been in a bad wreck. Shirt torn, one shoe missing, and dried red crusted across his arms and face. People stepped around him, unsure if he was in trouble or just another troubled soul the city had chewed up. I stopped strumming. He staggered toward me, slow and heavy like gravity had tripled on him. His eyes were blank, wide open, no blinking, just fixed on me. "You okay, man?" I asked, setting my guitar down slowly. No response. Just a low gurgling sound that didn't seem possible for a human throat. Before I could back away, he lunged. I jumped back, just in time to avoid his grip. His hands clawed at the air where I'd been standing, and when they missed, he kept stumbling forward until he tripped over my amp and crashed to the pavement. I heard something crack, maybe his arm, maybe my speaker, but he didn't flinch, just started crawling toward me, mouth open too wide, making that same awful sound like a blender full of gravel and spit. People were shouting now. A few bystanders had their phones out, but most were just backing away in confusion. One guy, some corporate type in a suit, stepped forward to help. He said, "Hey buddy, you need..." The crawling man grabbed him by the pant leg and yanked, hard. The suit guy went down with a yelp. Before I could shout a warning, the crawling man's face was in his neck. I didn't look too long. The noise was enough. People screamed. I ran. Left my guitar, my amp, my tips, everything. Just sprinted down Grant like the city was on fire behind me. I didn't stop until I hit 5th and almost collided with a crowd of people pushing past in the opposite direction. That's when I saw more of them. Stumbling, limping, covered in streaks and stains that didn't belong to them. Some fast, some slow, but all of them locked on anyone not like them. I ducked into an alley. My heart was going like a snare drum in overdrive. I crouched behind a dumpster and tried to breathe as quietly as possible. What I'd seen didn't make sense. It couldn't be real. I pulled out my phone, missed calls from my friend Gabe, 3 texts from Mia, my sister, and a dozen emergency alerts flashing across the screen. One said something about violent outbreaks and stay indoors. Another mentioned quarantine zones, but the city had already fallen past that point. A noise to my left, metal shifting. I froze. A girl, maybe 16, slid out from behind a stack of boxes, holding a tire iron like a baseball bat. Her face was streaked with sweat, and her hoodie had a tear across the sleeve. "You one of them?" she whispered. I shook my head. "I play music, that's all." She stared for a long second, then lowered the iron. "Then follow me," she said. "If you want to live longer than 5 more minutes." We moved fast, weaving through alleys and ducking behind parked cars. The girl knew the city better than I did, and that was saying something. I'd played almost every block of downtown at some point. But she took turns I didn't know existed, cutting through loading docks and slipping through broken fences like she'd done it her whole life. "My name's Lila," she whispered as we jogged through the shadow of a shuttered factory. "Ben," I said, still panting. "I play guitar, used to." She gave me a sideways look. "You left it behind." "I left everything behind." She nodded. "Smart." We ducked into the loading bay of what used to be a postal building. Inside was dim and cold, lit only by the glow from a soda machine still blinking its red out-of-order sign. Lila pushed a metal cabinet in front of the door and sat with her back to the wall. For the first time in what felt like hours, I let myself breathe. "What's going on out there?" I asked. She shook her head. "Started around noon. First it was some hospital in the north part of the city, people freaking out saying folks were acting strange. Then the news said it was some new kind of sickness. But it spreads fast, like way faster than anything normal." "It doesn't make sense," I muttered. "Nothing does anymore," she said. A low thud echoed from somewhere above us. We both froze. Another thud, closer. Footsteps dragging along concrete. Lila raised the tire iron again. We backed toward a stairwell at the far side of the room. Quietly, step by step, we climbed up into the dark. The building groaned with age and weight. Every creak sounded like a scream waiting to happen. Second floor. Empty cubicles and desks coated in dust. Someone had left their lunch half-eaten, as if they'd gotten up for coffee and never came back. Then we heard it. Not footsteps, not growling, but music. A low, haunting hum. Not from a speaker or a phone, but from a human throat. Just one note, repeating, echoing through the empty floor. Lila gripped my arm. "That's not good." We crept forward until we saw her. A woman in a lab coat, standing completely still in the middle of the room. Her head tilted back, mouth wide open, humming that same eerie tone. Her eyes were rolled back, and her arms twitched like puppet strings being pulled by the wind. Then she stopped and looked right at us. For a split second, no one moved. The humming woman stood perfectly still, like a statue someone forgot to finish. Her eyes locked with mine, and I swear I felt something press against my thoughts. Not just fear static, like her stare was trying to climb inside my head. Then, without warning, she screamed. Not a shout, not a cry. It was like a siren made of 1,000 shattered voices. The sound hit my chest like a shockwave, and I nearly lost my footing. Lila grabbed my wrist and yanked me behind a row of desks just as the woman moved. She didn't run. She glided. Her feet barely touched the ground as she surged forward, knocking over chairs and partitions like paper. "She's not like the others," Lila hissed. "Run!" We sprinted for the stairwell. The humming had returned, louder now, layered with whispers underneath it. I didn't know where the whispers were coming from. Her, the building, my own mind. Down the stairs, skipping steps, crashing into walls. We hit the ground floor and slammed through a side exit into an alley bathed in orange streetlight. For a moment, we were safe. Then the sirens started again. Dozens of them, echoing in every direction. And above the sound, more humming, different tones rising and falling, overlapping in ways that made my skin crawl. The city wasn't just falling apart, it was singing itself to pieces. Lila dragged me toward a nearby maintenance tunnel. There's an old rail path down here, leads out toward the edge of the city. Do you know what's happening to them? I asked, ducking inside. She didn't answer right away. I think it's not just a sickness, she said finally. It's something older, like a sound that changes people, makes them forget who they are. We moved through the tunnel in darkness, flashlight beam bouncing off old tile walls. Why are you helping me? I asked. Lila stopped. Because you're not like them, and because the last song I heard before all this started was from your guitar. I stared at her. You were there? She nodded. Across the street, eating fries. That blues riff you played. It stuck in my head when everything else started to fall out. Before I could respond, the flashlight flickered and died. And in the pitch black, we heard it. Humming. Not in front of us. Not behind us. Above us. I don't know how long we stood frozen in that tunnel. The humming came through the ceiling. Soft at first, like someone clearing their throat from a dream, but then it grew louder, more layered, like a choir of the lost tuning up for a concert no one should ever attend. Lila squeezed my wrist hard. Her breath hitched just once. We have to move. We shuffled forward in the dark, one hand on the wall, the other stretched out ahead in case we hit something. The air down there was thick with dust and rust. Pipes hissed occasionally above us, but every sound now felt wrong, corrupted, too musical. Eventually, the tunnel opened up into an abandoned station. It looked like no one had set foot there in decades. Old posters peeled from the walls. Benches were overturned. A subway car sat derailed on the tracks, its windows shattered, doors stuck half open like a yawn frozen in time. But the silence didn't last. The humming returned, and this time, it was close, inside the car. Lila turned to me and whispered, "We have two options. We can sneak past on the far side or check the car. If there's food or supplies in there..." I wanted to say no, to run, to never see another subway car again. But something about the stillness inside, the pause between notes, drew me in. "I'll check," I said. "You stay by the stairs." I climbed into the car through the warped doorway. The interior was dim, lit only by moonlight filtering in from broken panels above. The seats were covered in dust, and old snack wrappers curled like autumn leaves along the floor. Then I saw him. A man in a security jacket slumped in the far corner, head tilted sideways, eyes closed. I crept closer, slow and quiet. "Sir?" I whispered. He didn't move. I reached for his shoulder, and the moment I touched it, his head snapped upright. But he didn't attack. He just opened his mouth and breathed out a tune, a soft, low melody. 3 notes, over and over. It was beautiful. Horrible, but beautiful. And it felt like it knew me, like it was mine. My knees gave out. Suddenly, I was on the floor, gripping my head, the melody curling into my brain like smoke. I felt my thoughts slipping, who I was, where I'd been, all of it washing away like rain on chalk. Lila's voice cut through. "Ben!" She yanked me out of the car, slapped something into my hand. Headphones. I shoved them on and the hum disappeared like a light going out. Just silence. Sweet, heavy silence. Back in the tunnel, Lila pulled me against the wall. "That melody. Don't ever let it get in. That's how it spreads." I was shaking. It was inside my head. "I know," she said. "That's how it started for my brother. He heard the sound, and then he changed." She didn't say more. We sat there for a long time, not speaking, just listening for anything. But the silence was no comfort anymore. It was just the part of the song where the drop hadn't hit yet. We waited until our legs stopped trembling. Then we moved, slow, careful steps through the rest of the station. Lila kept one headphone in her ear, the other off, listening for anything that wasn't right. I kept mine fully on. I couldn't risk hearing that tune again. It was still echoing faintly in my mind, like a dream I wasn't sure was real. After maybe half a mile through the tracks, we found a ladder that led to a storm grate. Lila climbed up first, popped the cover, and peered out. "Clear," she whispered, and helped me up. We emerged into a back alley behind an electronics store. The city was different now. No more panicked screaming. No more running crowds. Just quiet streets under flickering streetlights. Abandoned vehicles. A shopping cart tipped over in the middle of the road, contents spilled like someone left in a hurry. And above it all, the hum. Not loud, but everywhere, carried on the wind. Crawling out of sewer vents. Dripping from the rooftops like rain. "It's in the air," I said. Lila nodded grimly. "It's been spreading like radio static. I think it started with the emergency broadcasts." We broke into the electronics store. The glass was already cracked, but not shattered, just enough for us to slip through. Inside, the place had been picked over, but the power was still running from a backup generator in the back. Lila made a beeline for the radios. She powered on a small handheld scanner and tuned through static and garbled voices. Then we heard it. "Repeat, do not approach those affected. The melody is not just sound, it's a signal. It infects thought. Masks memory. If you hear it, cover your ears, destroy any device carrying it." Another voice cut in, warped and slow, like a tape melting in real time. "They belong to it now. The song has found its choir. The city sings and you will too." Lila snapped the radio off. We stared at each other. "That wasn't a person," I said. "No," she agreed. "It was the signal using a voice." That's when the window shattered. Not from outside, from the inside. Every screen in the store lit up with that same symbol. A black circle with a line cutting through it like a needle across a record. And behind it, the hum returned. Deeper, more layered, like it had grown teeth. I ripped the headphones from my bag and shoved them back on. Lila did the same, grabbing my hand, pulling me toward the exit. We burst into the street and kept moving, dodging between parked cars and smashed storefronts. Somewhere in the distance, I saw someone walking in circles, eyes closed, swaying like they were slow dancing with someone who wasn't there. "We can't stay in the city," Lila gasped. "We need to get out past the ring." "Ring?" I asked. She pointed to the skyline. That's when I saw it. A halo of red lights hovering above the buildings, drones or satellites or something, forming a perfect circle around downtown. And then I realized it wasn't to keep the creatures in, it was to keep the sound in. Or maybe to amplify it. We ran, through twisted streets and half-lit alleys, past overturned buses and flickering traffic lights. The red halo in the sky pulsed brighter now, like it could feel us trying to escape. Lila kept checking a map she'd drawn on the back of a pizza flyer. Just a few more blocks, there's an old maintenance tunnel that cuts under the perimeter. It might be our last shot. We turned a corner and froze. A crowd stood in the street, 20, maybe 30 people, all facing the same direction, all humming. They weren't attacking anyone. They weren't moving. Just standing there, gently swaying to a rhythm only they fully understood. I pulled Lila back behind a car. "How do we get around that?" She looked past them, toward a manhole a block beyond the crowd. We don't. We go through. Through? We can't wait. If we linger too long, we'll start hearing it again. The headphones only block so much. We have to move fast, quiet, and not look them in the eyes. I didn't like it, but I nodded. We stepped out and moved like ghosts, sticking to shadows, holding our breath when we passed close enough to see their expressions, empty, slack-jawed, tears dried on their cheeks. Some of them mouthed words. I couldn't hear them through the headphones, but I felt them. We were halfway through when a child in the crowd looked right at me. No sound, no motion, just a small hand reaching out. I don't know why, but I reached back. The moment our fingers brushed, my headphones cracked with static. The hum poured in again. Lila shouted something. I couldn't hear it. I dropped to my knees. The world spun. My vision blurred. I saw flashes, streets full of people singing in unison. A subway cars burning while voices chanted from the windows. A man tied to a chair, humming through a smile he couldn't control. Then hands pulled me away. Lila. She threw something into the crowd. An old radio she'd rewired. It erupted in sparks and smoke. The crowd flinched. Just long enough. She dragged me the rest of the way to the manhole and pried it open. Down we went, into the dark again. My ears rang, but the melody was fading. Distant. Blocked by layers of concrete and pipe. We collapsed in a pool of shallow water at the tunnel's bottom. I looked at Lila. You saved me again. She shook her head. No, I bought us time, but that melody, it touched you this time. I saw it. I didn't argue. It had touched me, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever be able to unhear it. We moved through the tunnels until we saw the edge of the barrier above. A long ramp led up to a security door, but something stood in front of it. A single figure, not humming, not swaying, just waiting. It stepped forward, and in the dim light I saw its face. It was me. I couldn't breathe. It was me. Same scruffy beard, same worn jacket, same frightened eyes I'd seen in mirrors 100 times. But this version of me stood impossibly still, head tilted, mouth ever so slightly open like it was about to speak or sing. Lila stepped in front of me, tire iron raised. But the double didn't move. It just stared. I don't think it's real, I whispered. It's not, she said. It's the melody, trying to hold on. It made you see this. She was probably right, but I stepped forward anyway. As I got closer, I saw the cracks in its face. Not skin, not bone, like a puppet made of dried clay. Pieces flaked off as it breathed. It opened its mouth wider, and I heard it one note. Pure and sad. Familiar. The same note I'd played on my guitar earlier that day before the city collapsed. You remember it, I said. It nodded once. And then the wall behind it began to sing. Low at first, just a vibration in the concrete, but then louder, deeper, layered. The entire barrier pulsed like a speaker the size of a city block. The sound came from inside the wall, and from behind the wall, they were waiting. Hundreds of them. Their shadows stretched along the ramp as they approached. There was no time. I looked at Lila. We're not getting through, are we? She gritted her teeth. Maybe one of us is. I shook my head. No, don't even think about. But she was already running, straight toward the mass gathering at the top of the ramp. Swinging the tire iron, screaming something I couldn't hear through the headphones. She was trying to draw them away. And it worked. They surged toward her, the chorus rising into a frenzied crescendo. My double watched her run, then turned back to me, eyes empty. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I just reached into my coat, pulled out the harmonica I always kept in my pocket, beat up, bent, barely in tune, and I played. Just 3 notes. The same ones I played on the corner that morning. The same ones Lila remembered. The melody that made her stop and listen. The sound before the sickness, before the world sang itself apart. The figure paused. So did the chorus. And for 1 perfect second, the whole city listened. Then the wall cracked open, and everything fell into noise. The last thing I saw was light, red, white, and gold, all pouring through my mind in waves. I didn't survive the first 12 hours. Not really, but a piece of my song did. And maybe somewhere out there it still plays. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.